Hello and welcome back. Thank you for giving me another chance. Today we're going to be making a diagonal weave pendulum and fidget spinner. And it really will spin. It'll spin great. You'll see. It'll spin great. I've been making so many of these lately because people really seem to love them. And I will be reading cultural depictions of dogs from Wikipedia. And if I still have time after that, I'll be reading about dogs and religion. So, let's get started. Cultural depictions of dogs from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Cultural depictions of dogs in art has become more elaborate as individual breeds evolved and relationships between human and canine developed. Hunting scenes were popular in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Dogs were depicted to symbolize guidance, protection, loyalty, fidelity, faithfulness, alertness, and love. As dogs became more domesticated, they were shown as companion animals, often painted sitting on a lady's lap. Throughout art history, mainly in Western art, there is an overwhelming presence of dogs as status symbols and pets in painting. The dogs were brought to houses and were allowed to live in the house. They were cherished as part of the family and were regarded highly by the upper classes who used them for hunting and could afford to feed them. Hunting dogs were generally connected to the aristocracy. Only the nobility were allowed to keep hunting dogs, and this would signal status. Dog portraits became increasingly popular in the 18th century, and the establishment of the Kennel Club in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland in 1873 and the American Kennel Club in 1884 introduced breed standards, or word pictures, which further encouraged the popularity of dog portraiture. Early history. There are illustrations of dogs on the walls of tombs dating back to the Bronze Age, as well as statues, children's toys, and ceramics depicting dogs. Hunting dogs are commonly portrayed. One of the prehistoric paintings estimated to be 9,000 years old, found at the Bhimbetka rock shelters in India, depict a dog held on a leash by a man. Rock art of Tahsil Najur also include depictions that are highly suggestive of dogs. The ancient Greeks and Romans, contrary to the Semitic cultures, favored dogs as pets, valuing them for their faithfulness and courage. They were often seen on Greek and Roman reliefs and ceramics as symbols of fidelity. Dogs were given as gifts among lovers and kept as pets, guardians, and for hunting. Dogs were appreciated by the Greeks for their faith and love. Homer's Odyssey tells of the story of Odysseus, who raised a dog called Argos, and who was the only one that recognized him when he returned home after his travels, disguised to conceal his appearance. This theme has been often depicted in ancient Greek vases. The ancient Romans kept three types of dogs: hunting dogs, especially sight hounds, Molossus dogs, like the Neapolitan Mastiff, often depicted in reliefs and mosaics with the words Cave Canem, and small companion dogs, like the Maltese, used as women's lapdogs. A side note, they didn't give the translation for Cave Canem here, but it means beware of dog in Latin. Greyhounds were often represented as sculptures. Large dogs were used in war by the Roman army, arranged in attack formation, or for wolf hunting on horseback, which was a popular sport. Middle Ages. Generally, dogs symbolize faith and loyalty. A dog, when included in an allegorical painting, portrays the attribute of fidelity personified. In a portrait of a married couple, a dog placed in a woman's lap or at her feet can represent marital fidelity. If the portrait is of a widow, a dog can represent her continuing faithfulness to the memory of her late husband. An example of a dog representing marital fidelity is present in Jan van Eyck's Arnolfini portrait, an oil painting on oak panel dated 1434 by the early Netherlandish painter Jan van Eyck. It is a small full-length double portrait, which is believed to represent the Italian merchant Giovanni di Nicolai Arnolfini and his wife, presumably in their home in the Flemish city of Bruges. The little dog symbolizes faithfulness, devotion, or loyalty, or can be seen as an emblem of lust, signifying the couple's desire to have a child. Unlike the couple, the dog looks out to meet the gaze of the viewer. The dog could also be simply a lapdog, a gift from husband to wife. Many wealthy women in the court had lapdogs as companions, reflecting wealth or social status. During the Middle Ages, images of dogs were often carved on tombstones to represent the deceased feudal loyalty or marital fidelity. Hunting scenes. Hunting scenes were common topics in medieval and Renaissance art. Hunting in the medieval period was a sport exclusive to the aristocracy, and hunting was an essential part of court etiquette. Depictions of people with a hunting dog, hawks, or falcons would signal status. Hunting dogs were connected to aristocracy as only the nobility was allowed to hunt. Different breeds of dogs were used for different types of hunting. Hunting with dogs was so popular during the Middle Ages that wild bears were hunted to extinction in England. Hunting dogs are seldom seen depicted in the company of clerics, due to a prohibition of the activity decreed by the Fourth Council of the Lateran held under Pope Innocent III. In heraldry. As the aristocracy often utilized hunting dogs, dogs were shown as symbols in heraldry. In the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, heraldry became a highly developed discipline. Dogs of various types and occasionally of specific breeds occur as charges and supporters in many coats of arms, and often symbolize courage, vigilance, loyalty, and fidelity. 3 encaustic tiles dating from the 15th century feature a white hound, the Talbot family crest, and the inscription Sir John Talbot, the first Earl of Shrewsbury. Part of a set of 4, the tiles were possibly originally used on a church floor. The term Talbot is used in heraldry to refer to a good-mannered hunting dog. The Talbot dog always depicts the Talbot coat of arms and is the original hound used in the English heraldic symbol. It is portrayed in the family arms of several noble German families and at least 7 other English families. The greyhound also features very often in British heraldry and appears on the arms of several English and Scottish families. One family used a winged greyhound for its crest. Other breeds used less often in heraldry include mastiffs, bloodhounds, and foxhounds. A creature referred to as a sea dog is also used, and resembles the Talbot with scales, webbed paws, a fin along its back, and a flat beaver-like tail. The English heraldist Arthur Charles Fox Davies believed the sea dog to have originated from depictions of the beaver, citing as evidence that one of the supporters in the arms of Oxford, which strongly resembles the sea dog, is officially recorded as being a beaver. 16th and 17th century. During the 16th and 17th century, dogs were depicted in hunting scenes, representing social status as a lapdog or sometimes as a personal friend. They were also used as symbols in painting. The Greek philosopher Diogenes was depicted by Jean-Léon Gérôme in the company of dogs, serving as emblems of his cynic, from the Greek nikos, dog-like, philosophy, which emphasized an austere existence. Diogenes stated that unlike human beings who either dupe others or are duped, dogs will give an honest bark at the truth. Other dogs bite their enemies, I bite my friends to save them. In the painting Portrait of a Man at a Writing Table by Dutch painter Hendrik Martenzoen Sorg, a Protestant preacher and theologian, with the Bible open on the table, is depicted with his dog. The dog represents fidelity, vigilance, and regularity in research, owing to the perceived natural intelligence and intuition of a dog. 18th century. Netsuke are Japanese miniature sculptures of great artistic merit that also serve a practical function as a toggle for cords used to attach small objects, boxes, or pouches to kimonos, which traditionally have no pockets. Most Netsuke production was during the 1615 to 1868 in the Edo period in Japan. Among other motifs, Netsukes often depicted dogs. The tradition of showing dogs in hunting scenes continued into the 18th century. 19th and 20th century. The picture entitled A Distinguished Member of the Humane Society depicts a dog that was well known in London. The dog depicted in 1838 by Sir Edwin Landseer was a Newfoundland called Bob, who was found in a shipwreck off the coast of England. The dog found his way to the London waterfront, where he became known for saving people from drowning a total of 23 times over the course of 14 years. For this he was made a distinguished member of the Royal Humane Society, granting him a medal and access to food. By the Victorian era, the sporting tradition remained, but after the establishment of the Kennel Club in the UK in 1873 and the American Kennel Club in 1884, breed standards, or word pictures, were introduced and dog portraits soared in popularity. There are stylistic differences between the British and European depictions. William Seckert, a world expert on canine art, stated, Belgian, Dutch, Flemish, and German artists were more influenced by realism, depicting the dog the way it really looked, with dirt on its coat and slobber and that kind of thing. You see, Alfred Stevens, who's Belgian, do street dogs and dogs that are suffering, which in England you never see. British depictions were more idealized. They want it pretty, simply put. Contemporary times. The prices achieved for canine art increased in the 1980s and 1990s and started to gain popularity in established art circles rather than antique markets. Buyers were generally divided into three dominant categories: hunters, breeders, and exhibitors of pedigree dogs, and owners of companion animals. Pablo Picasso frequently included his canine companions in his paintings. Particularly well known and often featured in his work was a dachshund named Lump, who actually belonged to David Douglas Duncan, but lived with Picasso. Depictions of dogs have extended as well to the art form of photography, a noted example of being the work of photographer Elliott Erwitt. And that's all Wikipedia has to say about that. So, we are going to click on a link at the bottom here and move on to Dogs and Religion from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. Dogs have played a role in the religion, myths, tales, and legends of many cultures. Religions, myths, legends, and cultures. In mythology, dogs often serve as pets or as watchdogs. Stories of dogs guarding the gates of the underworld recur throughout Indo-European mythologies, and many originate from the Proto-Indo-European religion. Below entries are arranged in alphabetical order. Aztec religion. Dogs had a major religious and symbolic significance to the Aztec peoples of central Mexico. Several ancient burial sites for dogs have been discovered in Mexico. Xotl, an Aztec god of death, was depicted as a dog-headed monster. Chinese tradition. The dog is one of the 12 animals honored in the Chinese astrology. The second day of the Chinese New Year is considered to be the birthday of all dogs, and Chinese people often take care to be kind to dogs on that day. In China, Korea, and Japan, dogs were viewed as kind protectors. Pan Hu is a dragon dog who transformed into a man and married a princess. Christianity. In Christianity, dogs represent faithfulness. Within the Roman Catholic Church denomination specifically, the iconography of Saint Dominic includes a dog, after the Hallows Mother dreamt of a dog springing from her womb and becoming pregnant shortly after that. As such, the Dominican order, ecclesiastical Latin, Domine Canis, means the dog of the Lord or hound of the Lord. In Christian folklore, a church grim often takes the form of a black dog to guard Christian churches and their churchyards from sacrilege. A dog is mentioned in a Deuteronomical book of Tobit, faithfully accompanying Tobias, Tobit's son, and the angel Raphael on their journeys. Jesus told the story of the poor man Lazarus, whose sores were licked by street dogs. This has traditionally been seen as showing Lazarus's wretched situation. The Roman Catholic Church recognizes Saint Roch, also called Saint Rocco, who lived in the early 14th century in France, as the patron saint of dogs. It is said that he caught the plague while doing charitable work and went into the forest expecting to die. There he was befriended by a dog that licked his sores and brought him food, and he was able to recover. The feast day of Saint Roch, August 16th, is celebrated in Bolivia as the birthday of all dogs. Saint Gwenfort, was the name given to the dog who received local veneration as a saint at a French shrine from the 13th to the 20th centuries. A black and white dog, sometimes used as an informal symbol in the Dominican order of friars, religious sisters and nuns. This stems from a Latin pun, though the order's name is actually the Friars Preachers. It's generally called the Dominican order, after St. Dominic, their founder. The Domini Canes in Latin means the hounds of the Lord. Ancient Egyptian religion. The ancient Egyptians are often more associated with cats in the form of Bastet, yet here too dogs are found to have a sacred role and figure as an important symbol in religious iconography. Dogs were associated with Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the underworld. At times throughout its period of being in use, the Anubian catacombs in Saqqara saw the burial of dogs. Anput was the female counterpart of her husband Anubis. She was often depicted as a pregnant or nursing jackal, or as a jackal wielding knives. Other dogs can be found in Egyptian mythology. Amhe was a minor god from the underworld. He was depicted as a man with the head of a hunting dog who lived in a lake of fire. Tuemutef was originally represented as a man wrapped in mummy bandages. From the New Kingdom onwards, he is shown with the head of a jackal. Wepwawet was depicted as a wolf or jackal, or as a man with the head of a wolf or jackal. Even when considered a jackal, Wepwawet usually was shown with gray or white fur, reflecting his lupine origins. Kentaya was depicted as a jackal-headed deity of Abydos in Upper Egypt, who stood guard over the city of the dead. Greek mythology. Dogs were closely associated with Hecate in the classical world. Dogs were sacred to Artemis and Ares. Cerberus is a three-headed, dragon-tailed watchdog who guards the gates of Hades. Lailops was a dog in Greek mythology. When Zeus was a baby, a dog only known as the Golden Hound was charged with protecting the future king of gods. In Homer's epic poem The Odyssey, when the disguised Odysseus returns home after 20 years, he is recognized only by his faithful dog Argos, who has been waiting all this time for his return. Based on Greek mythology, 3 of the 88 constellations in Western astronomy also represent dogs. Canis Major, the great dog, whose brightest star Sirius is also called the dog star. Canis Minor, the little dog. Canis Venatici, the hunting dogs. Hinduism. In Hindi mythology, Yama, the god of death, owns 2 watchdogs who have 4 eyes. They are said to watch over the gates of Naraka. The hunter god, Muthapan, from the northern Malabar region of Kerala, has a hunting dog as his mount. Dogs are found in and out of the Muthapan temple, and offerings at the shrine take the form of bronze dog figurines. The dog, Shvan, is also the Vahana or mount of the Hindu god Bhairava. Yudhishthira had approached heaven with his dog who was the god Yama himself. Therefore, among many Hindus, the common belief exists that caring for or adopting dogs can also pave the way to heaven. Dogs are also shown in the background in the iconography of Hindu deities like Dattatreya. Many times dogs are also shown in the background in iconography of deities like Kanadoba. Despite dogs being allowed as pets, they are considered to be a species lower than human beings, are considered unclean, and should not be allowed inside the owner's house. They are more strictly not allowed inside temples, palaces, and houses of Brahman, as these are considered to be the places where Agni, Indra, Surya, and Vayu primarily reside. But dogs are allowed inside courtrooms, as per the Valmika Ramayana about a dog receiving justice, passed by King Rama. Islam. The view on dogs in Islam is mixed, with some schools of thought viewing them as unclean, although Khalid Abu al-Fadi states that this view is based on a pre-Islamic Arab mythology and a tradition to be falsely attributed to the Prophet. Therefore, Sunni Malacca and Hanafi jurists permit the trade of and keeping of dogs as pets. The majority of both Sunni and Shia Muslims jurists consider dogs ritually unclean. It is uncommon for practicing Muslims to keep dogs as pets. However, the majority of Muslims would touch and pet dogs as long as they are completely dry, because touching dry dogs is believed to remove impurities from them. In Britain, police sniffer dogs are carefully used, and they are not permitted to touch passengers. Instead, they are only permitted to touch their luggage. They are required to wear leather dog booties whenever they enter and search mosques or Muslim homes. There are a number of traditions concerning Muhammad's attitude towards dogs. He said that the company of dogs, except as helpers in hunting, herding, and home protection, voided a portion of a Muslim's good deeds. On the other hand, he advocated kindness to dogs and other animals. Abu Hurairah narrated what the Prophet said. While a man was walking, he felt thirsty, and he went down a well and drank water from it. On coming up out of it, he saw a dog panting and eating mud because of his excessive thirst. The man said, "This dog is suffering from the same problem as that of mine." So he went down the well, filled his shoe with water, caught a hold of it with his teeth, and climbed up and watered the dog. Allah thanked him for his good deed and forgave him. The people asked, "O Allah's apostle, is there a reward for us serving the animals?" He replied, "Yes, there is a reward for serving any animate living being." Judaism. Jewish law does not prohibit the keeping of dogs and other animals as pets. However, Jewish law requires Jews to feed dogs and other animals that they own before they feed themselves, and it also requires them to make arrangements for feeding them before they obtain them. In Judaism, there is no explicit ban on the keeping of dogs as pets, and although opinions of dogs vary among Jews, they are negatively portrayed in both the Hebrew Bible and the Talmud, where they are mostly associated with violence and uncleanliness. Deuteronomy 23:13 appears to equate dogs with prostitution, and the Book of Kings describes dogs who feed on corpses. The Songs describes dogs as beasts that maul at human beings. This negative view of dogs is also found in the Talmud, which also describes dogs as dangerous animals. However, dogs and other animals that are useful for preventing infestations or vermin are permitted to be used for that task as long as they are chained, although people who raise dogs are cursed. The Mishneh Torah states that dogs must be chained because they are known to frequently cause damage. The Shulchan Aruch states that only evil dogs must be bound and chained. Most Jewish authorities do not believe that there are any prohibitions on the keeping of dogs if they do not pose any threat to people or property. Judaism does not permit the neglect or abuse of any living animal. Jewish law states that any animal that is kept must be fed, and it also states that arrangements for feeding them must be made before they are obtained. This ruling also applies to dogs. In July 2019, rabbis from Elad signed an edict to ban dogs from the city. The rabbis say that the edict that the dogs are scaring women and children with their barks, even if it does not bite. They also justified their edict by making references to Torah and Talmud passages. Levant. During archaeological diggings, the Ashkelon dog cemetery was discovered in a layer dating from when the city was part of the Persian Empire. It is believed the dogs may have had a sacred role. However, evidence for this role is not conclusive. Mesopotamia. In ancient Mesopotamia, from the Old Babylonian period until the Neo-Babylonian, dogs were the symbol of Ninisina, the goddess of healing and medicine, and her worshippers frequently dedicated small models of seated dogs to her. In the Neo-Assyrian and Neo-Babylonian periods, dogs were used as emblems of magical protection. There is a temple in Isin, Mesopotamia, named Iyergi, which translates the doghouse. Enlilabani, a king from the Old Babylonian first dynasty of Isin, commemorated the temple to the goddess Ninisina. Although there is a small amount of detail known about it, there is enough information to confirm that dog cult did exist in this area. Usually dogs were only associated with the Gala cult, but there is some information, like Enlilabani's commemoration, to suggest that dogs were also important to the cult of Ninisina, as Gala was another goddess who was closely associated with Ninisina. More than 30 dog burials, numerous dog sculptures, and dog drawings were discovered when the area around the Ninsena temple was excavated. In the Gullah cult, the dog was used in oaths and was sometimes referred to as a divinity. In Persian mythology, two four-eyed dogs guard the Shinvant Bridge. Norse. In Norse mythology, a bloody four-eyed dog called Garmr guards Helheim. Also, Fenrir is a giant wolf who is a child of the Norse god Loki, who is foretold to kill Odin in the events of Ragnarok. In the Philippines, in Philippine mythology, Kimat, the pet of Tadaklan, the god of thunder, is responsible for lightning. In Wales, in Welsh mythology, Anwyn is guarded by Cwan Anwen. Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, the dog is regarded as an especially beneficent, clean, and righteous creature, which must be fed and taken care of. The dog is praised for the useful work it performs in the household, but it is also seen as having special spiritual virtues. A dog's gaze is considered to be purifying and drive off devas, demons. It is also believed to have a special connection with the afterlife. The Chinwad Bridge to Heaven is said to be guarded by dogs in Zoroastrian scripture, and dogs are traditionally fed in commemoration of the dead. Ahitiraram Isag, respect for the dog, is a common injunction among Iranian Zoroastrian villagers. Detailed prescriptions for the appropriate treatment of dogs are found in the Vendidad, a subdivision of the Zoroastrian Holy Scripture Avesta, especially in chapters 13, 14, and 15, where harsh punishments are imposed for harm inflicted upon a dog, and the faithful are required to assist dogs, both domestic and stray, in various ways. Often help or harm to a dog is equated with help or harm to a human. The killing of a dog, a shepherd's dog or a house dog, or a vohunazga, stray dog, or a trained dog, is considered to lead to damnation in the afterlife. A homeowner is required to take care of a pregnant dog that lies near his home, at least until the puppies are born, and in some cases, until the puppies are old enough to take care of themselves, namely 6 months. If the homeowner does not help the dog, and the puppies come to harm as a result, he shall pay the penalty for willful murder, because Atar, the son of Ahura Mazda, watches as well over pregnant dogs, as he does over women. It is also a major sin if a man harms a dog by giving it bones that are too hard and they become stuck in its throat, or food that is too hot that it burns its throat. Giving bad food to a dog is as bad as serving bad food to a human. The believers are required to take care of a dog with a damaged sense of smell to try and heal it in the same manner as they would do for one of the faithful, and if they fail, to tie it lest it should fall into a hole or a body of water and be harmed. Both according to the Vendidad and the traditional Zoroastric practice, dogs are allotted some funerary ceremonies analogous to those of humans. In the Vendidad, it is stated that the spirits of 1,000 deceased dogs are reincarnated in a single otter, also known as a water dog. Hence the killing of an otter is a terrible crime that brings drought and famine upon the land and must be atoned either by death of the killer or by the killer performing a very long list of deeds considered pious, including the healing of dogs, raising of puppies, paying of fines to priests, as well as killing of animals considered noxious and unholy, cats, rats, mice, various species of reptiles, amphibians, and insects. Sagdid is a funeral ceremony in which a dog is brought into the room where the body is lying so that I can look on it. Sagdid means dog sight in the Middle Persian language of Zoroastrian theological works. There are various spiritual benefits thought to be obtained by the ceremony. It is believed that the original purpose was to make certain that the person was really dead, since the dog's more acute sense would be able to detect signs of life that a human might miss. A four-eyed dog, that is one with 2 spots on his forehead, is preferred for Sagdad. The traditional rites involving dogs have been under attack by reformer Zoroastrians since the mid-19th century, and they had abandoned many completely by the late 20th century. Even traditionalist Zoroastrians tend to restrict such rites to a significant extent nowadays. That's the end of dogs and religion, and we still have a few minutes to go, so I'm going to hop over here to the Chinese guardian lions. Chinese guardian lions, or imperial guardian lions, are traditional Chinese architecture ornaments. Typically made of stone, they are also known as stone lions or shaishi. They are known in colloquial English as lion dogs or fu dogs. The concept, which originated and became popular in Chinese Buddhism, features a pair of highly stylized lions, often one male with the ball and one male with a cub, which were thought to protect the building from harmful spiritual influences and harmful people that might be a threat. Used in imperial Chinese palaces and tombs, the lions subsequently spread to other parts of Asia, including Japan, Korea, the Philippines, Tibet, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Cambodia, Laos, and Malaysia. Description: statues of guardian lions have traditionally stood in front of Chinese imperial palaces, imperial tombs, government offices, temples, and the homes of government officials and the wealthy, and were believed to have powerful mythic protective benefits. They are also used in other artistic contexts, for example, on door knockers and in pottery. Pairs of guardian lion statues are still common and symbolic elements at the entrances to restaurants, hotels, supermarkets, and other structures, with one sitting on each side of the entrance. In China and in other places around the world where the Chinese people have immigrated and settled, especially in local Chinatowns, the lions are usually depicted in pairs. When used as statuary, the pair would consist of a male leaning his paw upon an embroidered ball and a female restraining a playful cub that is on its back. Etymology: guardian lions are referred to in various ways depending on language and context. In Chinese, they are traditionally called shi, meaning lion. The word shi itself is thought to be derived from the Persian word sir. Lions were first presented on the Han court by emissaries from Central Asia and Persia, and were already popularly depicted as guardian figures by the 6th century AD. Today, the guardian lions are more usually specified by reference to the medium or material. For example, a stone lion, shai shi, or a stone sculpture; bronze lion, tong shi, for bronze sculpture; and less commonly, auspicious lion, referring to the Tibetan snow lion or good fortune. We still have a few minutes left in this video, and I just want to explain a little bit on the video here, and I'm not sure if this is going to match up or not, but at the end of the video where my fingers are on the top and the bottom of the fidget spinner, and I'm pushing together, you just push very, very slightly, and it loosens up the little sides to it and makes it so the ball spins really freely, and it's perfect. But you do it very, very gently. Push it in just to make them pucker a little. I also wanted to add that, when I'm trying to read, I'm still learning how to read out loud in a way that's easy for people to understand and try and pronounce words right. I mean, no disrespect when I'm trying to pronounce names of people or place names or religious concepts or anything like that. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to anyone. Big thank you to everyone who hung in till the end, and I hope you enjoy making Pendulum fidget spinner keychains. I like to put them on my zippers too, on my jackets. It's pretty cool. And stay tuned for my next episode where we'll be setting tiny, tiny cabochons into a snake pendant. Thank you so much.